And welcome to the Life Burst Podcast, where this week we're going to be going over all the new stand-up Diva center Lrigs and what type of deck you can play with them in order to make a pretty good splash at your locals if you want to. With Sanga, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, it's probably better to run Madoka and Musica. I said this with the Akeno, and it's sort of the same here. The other teams just sort of offer, I think, everything that Sanga does, but does it probably more efficiently. But that's not to say that you don't want to run a Sanga build just because you want to try something different, or just because you are a Sanga stand. And if that's the case, by all means, we've got some options here that can get you some wins in your locals, right? So I brought two. I brought an optimized list, one that I personally wouldn't mind bringing to my locals and thinking that I had a fair chance at winning, and then one that's a little bit more fun, a little bit more viable. It's going to be a little harder to get wins off of it, but it will be interesting, and it will be definitely a surprise factor, so your opponents won't exactly know what they're playing against, and you might be able to pull some off on them because of that. The first one is going to be the Sanga Optimal build, which is what you see in front of you. And now just to quickly go over what Sanga does, we can go over here and see that Sanga, once I put it more in frame, boop, we did it. Sanga is part of the team diagram. It's got the ability to basically enter charge as long as you have the rainbow on your fields. Its enter ability is also enter charge, and then you get the normal diagram ability of being able to pop a diagram card level 1 back to your hand and then replay it. So let's start with the Lrig deck then. The Lrig deck is going to be Madoka Float as your level 1 and Musica Power Move as your level 1. Now we'll start with the level 1s before we get to the level 2s because these are the ones that you're going to be popping back to your Lrig deck and replaying. Madoka Float allows you to have the best options for digging and drawing cards, plus putting some stuff in your trash is not the worst thing in the world. You have life bursts like, for example, your guard, which allows you to grab something out of your trash. You've also got Musica Power Move. Now Musica Power Move gives a Signy a negative 8,000 till end of turn, and that's sort of pseudo Lancer in this scenario. Normally you want to use Sanga's Lancer to bounce back, and the fact that this can open up at least 2 lanes on its own will really help you try to get that. So I think 90% of the time you're going to be using Power Move, and then 10% of the time you'll probably be using Madoka Float. Moving on to the level 2s, we got our pretty standard Clap and Splits. Clap is going to help you defeat aggro, and Splits is also going to help you stymie bleeding from aggro. And that's the reason you use those. You get Salvage the Future. It should in this deck basically just read, refresh the opponent's library, and you know, they lose a life cloth. That's more or less the normal mode for Salvage the Future. The other one is Azura Black Gaia, which grabs Signy out of your trash and lets you play them, and then the other end is it makes your opponent discard some cards. So you're not really focusing on discard in this one like you would in Madoka or something, but the discard's a nice little handy effect here. So you could replace that with Xenocluster and it wouldn't matter too much. So if you wanted to do that, that's an option. Then you can see we have a big pile in the right here of just multicolors. These multicolors are very carefully crafted. If you do the counts of the multicolors here, you'll find that it's balanced to be in a way that you always have access to black or blue in order to get your effects off for example, Musica Splits and Madoka Clap. But you also kind of want this rainbow effect in order to turn on Sanga's ability of being able to enter charge 1 and then grab something out of your enter. So the easiest ways to do it is with level 1 multicolors. Inevitably, your level 3s are mostly green, so that means that you're going to want blue-black as your primary thing that you're grabbing in order to do a 1. But, you know, they are carefully sculpted in a way that you have a kind of a rainbow access at all points in times, so you can make sure that you are able to turn on Sanga's ability. We have our first card that's in Japanese, so I'll pop up the Japaneso reader, aka the wiki, and we can talk about that one. This is Merli. Her constant ability is that she can't be vanished by effects of your opponent's level 1 Signy. That means no Ramel's getting rid of her, which is quite good. So it does an okay job against No Limit. That's its main ability. But when it enters, you can target one of your Lrigs until end of turn. The Signy gains those colors. That will also help Sanga turn on her ability, so she also kind of counts as multicolor in this scenario. Just one turn, but they don't usually last longer than a turn. It also has a pretty handy life burst, which charges you 1 the next time you be damaged by Signy. You instead are not damaged, so that's a pretty good one. Then we have Anta. Now, Anta is a little bit of a weird choice. It's mostly for this life burst ability, which will allow you to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can pick one and then put that on the field or put it in your hand. But it also kind of has a weird sort of play with Sanga. You can grab a card without guard from your trash and put it onto the top of your deck. Then when you go to Sanga's attack phase, you'll be able to enter charge 1, so you'll enter charge whatever you put in there. And then you'll be able to take a card from your enter and put it into your hand, so it's pseudo draw with her. It's not quite good, but it exists there, and it's a small little package you should know about. Then we have a, oh god, we just practiced one, Fragarash, I did it! Lightly Armed, which gives something negative 2,000 power. It's basically just a slightly worse Ramel, but it will allow you to inevitably kill some things. And when it's not good Ramel, it's just enter, and that's always fine. Then you have a full set of Servants, of course, and then 2 Parajulius. You're never really trying to run a lot of these types of cards in one, if you can help it, because you don't want to be just open to just getting Ramelled ran over. So you're going to try to lean on these to be your level 1 plays. But you are enter charging sometimes turn 2, so Parajulius will get you there, plus you needed a little bit more green at the level 1 without a life burst, so that's what got us there with that Parajulius choice. Moving on to our level 2s, we actually don't have a ton in the level 2, we slipped a little bit of that to our level 1 slot here, but we have 4 Falcolors. There's nothing really much to be said about Falcolor. Its life burst is fantastic. Being able to down 2 opponents' Signy and then draw a card can save you a lot of damage in a lucky scenario. So running the max 4 is always a pretty good option. But we do have a new card here, and I will go to the wiki to show you. And that's Churin, Natural Plant. Just Natural Plant. Not Natural Planet, just Natural Plant. It's if the Signy is in your center Signy zone, then you get to enter charge 1. So this is quite a good Signy. It's just a little bit of a filler. It allows you to get some enter charge effects in. So when you're not hitting Sanga Aerial, you can still turn on Osaga Getsuns and your Parajuliuses. Plus, getting a little bit of enter for stuff like being able to cast your Azure Black Gaia is always good. Or getting the black that you might need for your Langling, which is what we're going to go to now, the Type 3. Langling Type Dre is just fantastic. It's one of the main reasons you'd run Diagram. The incidental mill that you can get on the opponent is quite good when you pair it with Salvage the Future, but in future sets they still run Langling just because its ability is pretty fantastic. Giving something negative 5,000 power is quite good, but giving something negative 10,000 power is insane. And then we have Osagetsun. Whenever we're talking about something that enter charges every turn, Osagetsun's the natural card to put in. It's just removal with 2 enter, plus it pumps your stuff, which is always randomly good, plus it pumps your opponents, which is always randomly good. And then you have Boar Jade Evil. Now this is sort of a pet card for me. Not a lot of people run it, but not a lot of people run green in general. But Boar Jade Evil, play it, you'll hit a couple life bursts with it, and you'll be like, oh, this card's fantastic. It kind of plays similarly to the Volcanic in the No Limit deck, where you can vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with 5,000 or more. That's almost 70% of their deck in most cases. So you will be able to really hit most targets, and some annoying targets too. Your opponent puts down, like, for example, an Anna and thinks that they're like, oh yeah, I'm sitting here at 13k, you can't touch this. And then you're like, oh yeah, I hit this life burst, see you later, Anna. And they go, oh, well, I guess that's that, you know? So you inevitably will find, and I've also used it to hit, for example, projection maps, PJ maps, in order to allow me to guard a little later down the line. It's quite good. It's going to be outclassed at some point, but green really needs some more powerful Signies, so for now, it's pretty good. And then at the bottom here, I don't count rises as level 3s. I count them as just sort of spells. We have Animirage, which is just more lane opening for colorless, and that's its primary function. Plus, it has a fairly good life burst, allowing you to ambush. And then we've got Trouble, which is another like a Falcalor life burst. Draws you 3 cards, so it gets you a little further into this game. This deck needs a little bit more gas than the average deck does, because it's trying to go a little later game. But a Falcalor life burst is quite good as well. So that's the deck in a nutshell. That's the optimized build. I wouldn't feel bad running this at a ceremony and thinking I should get pretty far. I don't know if it'll get quite as far as Madoka or a Musica build, but I think this could get you top 32. I could say that with some amount of confidence from my testing at any rate. But if you're looking for a fun build, something I thought of is that a lot of our viewers want builds that aren't just meat and potatoes. This is the greatest thing known to man. So I came up with another build that'll catch most people by surprise when they use it. And it's an Angels build. So as far as Angels go, one of the troubles they have is lane opening. So this is actually a weird middle area where, because you have so much lane opening in your Lrig deck and damage in your Lrig deck, you can kind of get away with running Angels without thinking too much about lane opening. Plus, Angels, there's not a ton of good ones. You're going to need to sort of stretch your colors out. And because you're running so many different variety of colors, then that actually kind of fits nicely into Sanga's ability, which wants rainbow colors. So, because of that, you end up with a rainbow-based deck unintentionally, and that fits Sanga's playstyle. So, let's go into it with that explained. We're doing all the same things, basically, in the Lrig deck, with the exception of 2 things. I swapped Madoka Clap to Madoka Break. Now, Madoka Break is a less good Signy. I just straight up say that. However, its ability allows you to lane open. And because it can lane open, that's something that's a little bit more needed in this deck, because there's not a ton of natural lane openers, although I did add a few just because I thought it was important to add some lane openers. We've got Nyx Doomed Angel, which is actually a very good card. It's basically Fragarash, but it is free. And that is very strong. We have Grimoire Jade Angel, which allows you to grow it basically into a 7,000, so it's not getting vanished very easily, and it can become quite an annoying wall in this deck. It also has a pretty good life burst of Enter Charge 2, and then add up to 1 target Signy from your Enter Zone to your hand. And it's add up to, so you could just use it to Enter Charge 2 if you really wanted to, in order to play some bigger effects that you might want later down the line. Then we have a slew here of 4 multicolors. So there's no multicolor Angels yet. And as such, you're not really able to fix your mana, your Enter very well here. So you need a little bit of bleed here to do this. There's not a ton of bleed in this deck. There's still enough Angels to trigger what you need to, but you're going to need a little bit of this. And again, the colors were chosen carefully based on what imbalances there were. 4 servants, of course. The Scotty Jade Angel, which gives another Angel the ability to Enter Charge on attack, which is quite cool, that you get a pretty easy to turn on Enter Charge. It's not the most powerful thing in the world, but it's pretty good. Then we got 4 Langland type Dre. Like I said, it's quite a powerful card, so I'm also mostly using it because I just need lane opening. But here's the difference, right? In this one, you're going to be choosing your opponent 9 times out of 10 to make them mill 5. This one, there's a fair chance that you're milling yourself. A lot of Angels enjoy having things that see Angels into the trash, right? Both of these like seeing Angels into the trash. Some more stuff does, including Heaven's Door, which I forgot to mention was something that we have in our Lrig deck. We'll get back to it in a second. And this is going to mill yourself as well. So it's a little self-mill while giving you the added benefit of adding some lane openers. But when we get to lane openers, we can actually talk about Demeter. Demeter is a lane opener in a way. It does damage, by giving things Lancer if you have a rainbow effect on your field. So let's go over to Demeter here. It is got Harmony 1 blue Lrig. At the beginning of your attack phase, as long as there are 3 or more colors among Signy on your field, and this Signy is upped, then you may target one other Signy. If you do, you can pay a green and colorless. If you do, until end of turn, it gains Lancer. Then it's got an auto once a turn ability, which is whenever one of your Signy is vanished, you can enter charge 1. So the enter charge doesn't really matter. It's just sort of like a booby prize of being like, oh, I guess this got vanished before I can really do very much with it. That's fine. I get an enter. So it's not the worst thing in the world to have. But the idea here is you're giving one of these other big angels, or Lingling, Lancer. And you'll notice that's one of the reasons why we don't have very much green in the 3-drop slot. It's actually so that way we can play this along with one other of these 3 level 3s, and then our level 2s are going to either be Gagiel or one of these in order to try to get ourselves, or even one of these, to try to get ourselves the other color that we don't have. We have Amabi Angel Queen, which stalls the opponent. It's not super great. I think Valkyrie's a little bit better, which is why we've got 3-2 split here. But it stalls the opponent, which is nice. Drawing a card is nice. You really play both of these for their life burst, which inevitably gets you card advantage in terms of angels. And then you also have Valkyrie, which is quite a sticky threat. It doesn't get removed very easily, and that allows you to lane clutter to get yourself a little bit more late game damage. And then our end things here are these are just more lane openers, right? We have Honor Mirage to lane opener, Everrating Melody to lane opener, and this new one, the reason why we don't use 2 Everrating Melodies is just this new one doesn't have Life Burst. Let's go click that one. It's a Rectal Digger. Whenever you use the spell, you can exceed 4 for its cost. Target Signy on your opponent's field gets negative 5,000 power. Additionally, if you pay to exceed 4, it gets a whopping negative 12,000 power. So quite good of a card. You're never really wanting a ton of exceed cards in your decks. So this will do that. Plus you have Heaven's Door. Now Heaven's Door is going to be a very late game card. You're not really doing this turn 2. You're probably not doing this turn 3. It's somewhat unlikely you're doing this turn 4, so you're probably doing it turn 5 to pop open another lane, and then you're going ahead and drawing some cards too off of it, which will help you continually push that late game power to it. And then, of course, Salvage the Future just gets you your refresh, and refreshing is always a good way to deal damage to the opponent. So that's your Sanga Angels. Again, this is going to heavily rely on some surprise factors here to win the game, and it could. Not a lot of people are quite expecting Angels, and the next set brings in some powerful white Angels, as well as we've got some good red Angels. So Angels will probably swap over to those colors then, so people might not be expecting blue, black, green Angels. And that's the Sanga deck. If you guys want to know more about the deck techs, or you want to see the upcoming card evaluations and the new set reviews, feel free to subscribe. If you guys are excited about Sanga or want to add anything or thoughts that you guys have, put them down in the comments below. As always, I hope you guys flip a life burst.